Joe Musso in the mix alongside the two-time champ Bryant McFadden, my guy Emory Hunt, here to break down what we saw in this battle that would determine the top of the division out west. And at the end of the night, it's the San Francisco 49ers with that mantle. We'll talk about their ability to carry it, but what did you see tonight? Because it looked like those same second-half woes were popping up on San Francisco, and then they turned it on in that final 7 minutes.
Well, overall, I saw Brock Purdy be more decisive, and that's decisive with his throws, decisive when to run forward. We didn't see too many of those wild scrambles behind the line of scrimmage, and when you're decisive, the ball came out quickly, came out on time, and I thought that was great. We also saw the big play back in effect for San Francisco. Deebo Samuel had a 76-yard touchdown reception. We also saw Isaac Guerrero, the rookie, break off a 76-yard run and slid at the end. Probably should have got the touchdown for the points and yards, rookie. But then you look at what they did overall. You know, Michael Wisnowski, the punter, 4 punts, 3 down inside the 20-yard line. That was huge when you zoom out and look at how they won this ball game. So I thought those things were back in play for San Francisco, and to me, that's why they were able to come out victorious.
I'd like to add one more thing to everything Emory gave us in terms of San Fran winning this ball game. They stayed with the running game. They didn't divert and just put the football in Brock Purdy's hands. When you look at Brock Purdy, he threw the ball 28 times. 28 times. That is where you need to have your quarterback when you can run the football like the San Francisco 49ers ran the football tonight. If you go back to last week's ball game against the Arizona Cardinals, they led for the majority of that ball game, but they kept throwing the football. They had the same success last week, but they just decided to throw the football, which actually worked in favor of the Arizona Cardinals. So Kyle Shanahan, he finally learned his lesson. He said, if Jordan Mason is in the lineup or if he's not, we're going to stay with the running game. 33 rushing attempts for over 200 yards. That is the name of the game when you talk about the balance that San Francisco can display week in and week out.
That's it. When you can marry that also with a 18-28 for 255 and 3 touchdown night for your quarterback, that is balanced football and a winning attack here from San Francisco. Let's stay with the run on this show and get to the other side, because pregame, it's much of what we called for out of Seattle. More balance. Yes, they are chasing, so the game script changes. But again, it's about a 70% drop back rate. But we also saw why they don't stay committed to the run. They can't do it. 2.6 per carry. It was 52 yards on 20 attempts, Emory. Is this a problem with the running back core? Is this a problem with the offensive line? Is this a problem with play calling staying in flow? Where do you find the issue in the run game?
The play calling, because a lot of times we get caught up with, oh, what's the result? What's the outcome? But a lot of times the attempts have to be there. You have to still run the football even if it's not working. You can't just get away from it because you don't get the 20-yard gain or the 5-yard gain. Sometimes those 2-yard, 3-yard gains, they add up in the end, which allows you to play action pass, which gets your offensive linemen in the grooves to kind of slow down that pass rush that they face all night from Nick Bosa. And when you got away from it, you saw the offense kind of like become a shell of itself, and that can't happen moving forward, because once you become one-dimensional in any level of football, you're easier to defend. And we saw San Francisco pin their ears back. You had 2 defensive players, 2 rookies. Malik Mustafa got an interception. Ronaldo Green got an interception. So when you have those things happening because you got away from the run game, that's a problem for their offense.
Seattle's offense reminds me a lot of my elderly uncle. They have no patience. Like my uncle has no patience, they have no patience when it comes to the running game. To your point, if you get 2 or 3 yards, you got to be patient. You have to be patient, because one thing we know about Kenneth Walker, he is a productive back. He's a very, very explosive back. And most running backs, just like Kenneth Walker, they get better with the volume. When the volume increases, he gets better. When you talk about Kenneth Walker in second-half action, if you look at some of his big-time performances, that's where he displays the most production, because the volume has increased. They have no patience. They got to find a way to be patient with the running game if you would like to get the best and the most out of your offense, especially your quarterback in Geno Smith. Because Geno Smith is a guy he's at his best when he has balance to rely on. So they got to find a way to exercise the mindset of being patient when you're running the football, because if you get impatient with the running game like they've done, especially in tonight's matchup, to your point, Emory, they're going to be chasing points and trying to fight from behind.
And here's the hidden part of that, too. When you're dropping back 50 times to throw the football 52 times, you leave yourself susceptible to these 9 penalties that we saw Seattle get. You saw holdings, you saw illegal formation, you saw, illegal shifts. All of that happens because you're throwing too much. When you're running the football, you have little room for error for these things. You may get a holding call here or there, but you won't get these procedural penalties that we saw Seattle get. Now you backed up, now you're throwing a little bit more. So all of that, the snowball just starts to roll downhill because you're dropping back 50-plus times.
That is 52 attempts on his 34th birthday for Geno Smith. That's a lot of tiger balm for the shoulder as age creeps up on Smith here as well. This season has crept up on the Seattle Seahawks. That's now 3 losses in 11 days, guys. This was a 3-0 team that people were talking about far differently, and now you find yourself at even 500 following this stretch. Coming up, it's the Falcons, Bills, Rams, and then the Niners again in San Francisco. B-Mac, how should I feel about the Seattle Seahawks after this 3-game stretch?
It shouldn't feel good at all. There's a lot going on with Seattle, right? We talked about the offense, we talked about the turnovers, the penalties, the inability to run the football. But what about their defense? Their head coach got the opportunity to be their head coach because of his defensive mentality, what he did going back to Michigan, most recently with the Baltimore Ravens. Defensively, in the last 3 losses, they're allowing 35 points per ball game to the likes of the Detroit Lions, New York Giants, and then tonight, San Francisco. So, yes, we know they're dealing with a lot of injuries. When you look at the first level, second level, heck, in the third level. But you still have to find a way to get the job done. Mike Tomlin, one of his famous Tomlinisms I love to reference, no one cares about your labor pain. Your job is to deliver the baby.
Show me the baby.
In the NFL, nobody cares about your labor pain. You got to deliver the baby. So no one cares about all the injuries you're dealing with on the defensive side. You still have to go out and deliver. So that is the one, I guess, one of the more alarming issues with Seattle, because Mike McDonald's a very, very smart, intelligent, defensive-minded guy, but we're not seeing that result into consistent production on the defense with the Seahawks.
You know, it's crazy when we have synergy, because we didn't talk about this at all before the show, because me and Joe spoke about this while we were watching the game, and B-Mac just echoed that point home perfectly when we brought up how certain teams tend to build, a roster in terms of a 52. You talk about, I know Leger brings it up a lot. Leger Douzabal, our colleague, brings it up a lot about building out a roster. And certain teams, 1 through 53, are solid. So it doesn't matter if you have a Christian McCaffrey out or Jordan Mason out. Isaac Guerrero goes there and runs the football, and the expectation doesn't change. That's the Tomlinism, where the standard is the standard. And so with teams like this, like San Francisco, they will go out there and play whoever's out there because we expect you to do so. And just from a draft standpoint, it's like, man, we have the luxury of, as the NFL, to scoop off or scrape off the top and get some of the best. So yes, our third string is still a stud player. So you better go out there and perform. And so there is no excuse for Seattle. You have to go out there and perform.
And it's coaching preparedness into that depth, which is something we saw out of San Francisco today and throughout this season already, because let's not put lipstick on the pig right now. This is a team that's underperforming to their standard in the San Francisco 49ers, even coming off of this win and what they were able to do offensively. It's a secondary that's decimated by injury. They are now thin at the running back position, as we'll wait to see what's good with the shoulder of Jordan Mason, who's filled in great for CMC. They have problems right now. And that second half problem was maybe remedied on this day. Emory, did they do enough in the final 30 minutes of this contest to make you no longer worried about them closing out when they do inevitably have that 2-touchdown lead at half?
Yes, because one thing, they have two words, Nick Bosa. And what's interesting about Nick Bosa, 0 sacks.
Yeah.
100% impact on the game.
Everything.
Every play of the game, he was the reason why Seattle couldn't do nothing consistently offensively. So as long as he stays healthy, Fred Warner stays healthy, they'll be fine, because that's pressure at both levels of the defense. And we saw 2 rookies getting there. We saw Mustafa leave with an injury, but Green stepped up and played well at corner. And so as long as you're able to get pressure and frustrate the game plan, Nick Bosa altered everything Seattle wanted to do, because they had to get help, they had to chip, they had to shift, slide, protection to one side. They couldn't do what they wanted to do because it was being dictated by Bosa. So Bosa, Warner stays healthy defensively, they'll be fine. Offensively, we know it's not plug and play, but it is kind of plug and play. They've been healthy at receiver. They've been healthy at tight end. Juszczyk is still out there. They'll be fine, in my opinion.
Depth tested, and they passed with flying colors. Bryant, McFadden, Emory, Hunt, we appreciate your thoughts here on the tail end of the Thursday Nighter. And you know what Thursday means? Sunday's right around the corner. Join us right here on CBS Sports HQ after a full day of viewing pleasure on CBS and streaming on Paramount Plus. There's a look at your 1 Eastern window as the young buck and the reigning MVP will go head-to-head in B-More. It's the Texans and the Pats as they get a young quarterback going there as well. There's youth at the quarterback position everywhere you look, including Colts and Titans. Steelers and Raiders running back the clock and maybe running up the score? Doubt it. We got plenty of action coming this weekend on CBS.